All right, welcome back to The Dilemma. I'm Emma.
And I'm Brian
Burn.
Burns.
And today we are back with episode 12, I think.
It seems like we're about there. Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhere in there, 10 or 12.
yeah, 10 or 12. And we're going to be talking about organization and what that looks like in our work week at our jobs, right?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Let's do it. You want to kick us off?
Sure. So one thing I've learned uh, is that it's good to plan your week. Plan the week ahead. Make sure that you have a plan for the week. And one thing that I used to do is I would block out certain times for certain things. So, for example, do you mind if I just share my screen?
No.
Okay, so I just put this together real quick uh, to share with you. But this is an example of what that could look like. So, for a salesperson, you've got administrative things that you need to do at the beginning of the week, like putting together presentations and proposals and call lists and marketing lists and things like that, all the kind of um, administrative type things that one has to do at the beginning of the week to kind of prep for the week, right? And then you have um, in the afternoon, I kind of had this as cold calling. It might, some of the early stuff might bleed over into the afternoon, but as soon as you get all your things done, then make some dials. And then I usually would designate Tuesdays and Thursdays as my days to book appointments. Of course, if somebody can't do a Tuesday or Thursday, I'm not going to not take the appointment with a prospect, for example, on a different day if that's what all they can do. So you certainly have some flexibility here, but it gives you like a game plan somewhere to start. So Tuesdays and Thursdays were appointment days. Um, I would do cold calling on Wednesdays and Friday mornings, and a little bit on Monday afternoon, and then Friday afternoon was designated for doing follow up. So if I had appointments on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's typically things that you have to follow up with, like an email, replying, "Thank you for meeting with me." Maybe there's some information that needs to be sent out to that prospect, those kind of things. And then another thing I tried to incorporate, and this wouldn't necessarily be every week, but if I'm lacking for appointments, I would add in an 8 before 8 or a 5 after 5. And the idea here was to try to reach 8 people before 8 a.m.
Mhm.
And so you go in early, 6:30 or 7 in the morning, and you just designate that hour to really hammer the phones and try to get a hold of people. And what you find is that many times the person, the receptionist, isn't in that early. So you might, but yet a CFO or a CEO or owner of a business might be in because it's their business, it's their baby, so to speak. And so calling at that time, you might reach them because you're not getting blocked by the gatekeeper, so to speak. And minimum, you're finding out a little bit more about navigating their voicemail system and where that person might be. Sometimes you get information out of that as well. Like it'll put you right to like a phone directory or something like that, where you can reach the person's extension. The other thing I'll do is pick a day to do like a 5 after 5, and that's 5 people. Try to reach 5 people after 5 p.m. And again, you'd be surprised the gatekeeper or receptionist, so to speak, isn't there. And many times executives are working late, and you can catch them. Sometimes Friday afternoons are even good for that. So that's kind of how I would approach it. And of course, this is different for each role that you're in. Your role would be a little different. You might have more cold calling days, or you might designate this as calling for specific types of uh, things, like maybe you're calling on an event during
Yeah.
these days, doing
Or
marketing campaigning on these days. Go ahead.
or you use one of those cold calling days. So say like a Wednesday would probably be a Wednesday morning and you do very you're really like looking at accounts. So you're doing, what is it called? I can't think of the word, but
More of a strategic approach.
yeah, a strategic approach towards cold calling and profiling. And then in the afternoon, you have a set of accounts where you're just trying to reach anyone you can to get more information. And that's more so that you can profile the accounts, you know, who they're on, when would be a better time to reach out to them. Or, you know, sometimes you get lucky and they're evaluating, you know, in the next few months. So
Right.
that's another approach I think we talked about.
Yeah. I'm going to stop sharing now just so that you don't have that filling up the screen. Yeah, so I think that's an important way to kind of start your week. And of course, like I mentioned, that can be, it's different for everybody. It's different for each role, but as long as you have a plan and then you work your plan, and sometimes you have to make alterations to the plan, but at least you have a starting point.
Yeah, and
So
I think what was tough going into my role is that I felt like I knew how to do the role, but not where to start. And it's really important to have this like quote unquote game plan as to where you plan on starting so that every week you know what you're doing and you're not using a moment of the day going, what am I supposed to be doing?
yep.
And I think, you know, we've had a few discussions, like I called you last week, like super frustrated. I'm like, I don't know where to start. Like, I have all these accounts, but I'm not reaching anyone on this report, And it's just, you know, you have to make sure you block out your schedule with different people you're calling, different accounts you're calling, and have it prioritized, or you do feel pretty crap.
Yeah, and I think like we talked about, I think earlier today actually, what I try to do when I'm prospecting and just trying to gain access, get appointments, I use two different methods. One is just the smile and dial. Like I want to get a lot of activity, so I've made a lot of phone calls or a lot of emails, and maybe a phone call and follow with an email, just really rapid fire, and I'm doing that kind of across a lot of different accounts. And then I've got a targeted method with a handful of accounts that I'm working on that week. So I'll take 5 or 10 accounts that I'm doing like we did earlier, do a little bit of research on them. You understand maybe who the contacts are, what their interests are. We saw one person was really involved in SHRM, for example. And that can help you because you go in and go, hey, my company is recognized by SHRM for these reasons or whatever. And that might pique their interest enough to call you back or email you back.
What was interesting to me is a lot of times I feel like, okay, like I need to do all this research on this company to understand, like to accurately like profile them or do the strategic approach. But I think we took a total of like 10 to 15 minutes on our call today. And we discovered so many like key elements to these different contacts. And it
Yep.
really only took just looking at their company, pulling up the website, doing a
Mm-hmm.
like two different touches, saying, oh, their campaign history, they've, you know, had this intent with us or this interaction with us, and then someone else. And it was so insightful to me because here I am like getting on the phone, just like dialing, which is a different approach and good for a separate reason.
Yes.
I
Yep.
wasn't doing any of the strategic outreach, which within the few minutes that we did helped me go, okay, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. And it's going to be
Right.
calling these people and mentioning these things in my email, following up with them, or even on the phone call. So it's, you know, the planning element is so important because it does allow you the both aspects.
And it gives you more of it allows you to tailor your message to that individual or that company and and say something that would be more meaningful to them, that might pique, like I said, pique their interest, cause them to listen for just another few seconds, maybe actually return your phone call if it's a voicemail, or listen a little bit longer if you actually reach them, right? If you've said something that means something to them.
Yes.
So those little things, even finding out, on LinkedIn, you can find a lot of things like where they went to college, and maybe you have something in common. Hey, we have something in common. We both went to
I've done
Cal
that
State Fullerton.
Yeah, I've done that a few
Or
times, like someone that's gone to one of my reps accounts are in, Arizona, and I go to the University of Arizona. So a lot of
right,
them will have graduated from U of A or even ASU. So I'll joke around and be like, I know you're a Sun Devil because that's ASU's mascot, but
yep,
um I still want, we still want you to come to this event, like
yeah.
whatever. And it's just those little touches. Sometimes I get a reply, sometimes I don't, but
So kind of bringing it back to our topic today, you can end up, we only spent 10 minutes. We are really deliberate about it, right? And we were very focused on what we were trying to accomplish, but you could end up spending your whole day doing that if you're not careful, right? So having a game plan and knowing, okay, I'm going to spend these hours working on this type of thing, and then these hours I'm going to be smiling and dialing, and these hours I'm going to be doing administrative work. So that you really discipline yourself to do the right things at the right time. And I think I want to share this. I think this would be a good time to share this. Have you ever heard the kind of the analogy of the big rocks versus the little rocks? The idea is if you have a jar and you have some very large rocks and you have some pebbles and some sand, if you put the sand in first and then you put the pebbles and then the big rocks, they don't fit. They don't fit in the jar. I'll show you. Let me share my screen again. Hey, we're going to be screen sharing to a screen sharing day. I'll show here. I'll show off my picture of you and your siblings. Um, there's our family. Anyway, so here's the image that I was thinking of. It's if you put in the sand first, and then the pebbles, and then the big rocks. Look how it overflows. It doesn't all fit in the jar. If you put the big rocks in first, the important things that you need to get done, the proposal that has to get ready, the demonstration you have to prepare the presentation for, the important soccer game that you have to go to for your kid because it's the finals. You put those on your calendar and you make sure that you do them. Then all the other things can, then you get your paperwork done and your email sent and your phone calls made, and you can fill those in a lot better once you make sure those big rocks are taken care of. And so it's kind of like prioritizing the important things in life and in your work. And I'll stop sharing now, but that's kind of the analogy. These two jars represent the same exact rocks and sand. It's just a matter of how you organize them
right.
to fit them in your day or your week or your month, right?
Yeah, and another key thing you can do is just some advice I've learned from some different people. Even today, we focused on manufacturing because that's what our product works well with, is like manufacturing. Not to say that it doesn't work well for everyone, but we just have sometimes better luck in the manufacturing
Yeah.
industry. But what you could do is plan out, the next few months and go this week or these 2 days of this week between these hours, I'm focusing just on these top manufacturing accounts, and then go to retail and then move to, and you kind of are prioritizing your months, but also the top accounts within those different industries. And it just helps lay everything out so you're reaching all accounts, but strategically.
Yeah, it's a great point. And we talked a little bit about this last week when we were organizing or attacking our territory, right? Understanding what we have. And so you've already done that, right? Assuming that you listened to us last week and you've gone through your territory and you understand what you've got, then you can do what you're talking about. And then you can organize. And what that does for you is you can start building messages and campaigns around what is a manufacturing company interested in?
Yeah.
What is important to them? Typically, it's timekeeping and making sure that they're managing their labor really well and that people can get punched in quickly and get to work right away. And those little things and understanding what those are. Then when you're doing a campaign, maybe you're doing the rubber duck campaign, or maybe you're doing some other kind of drop, sending them cupcakes or whatever your thing is, you can tailor some messaging, maybe some handwritten notes or some little brochure, even brochures that have pictures of people doing manufacturing. So it makes sense, it captures,
I think
they know that you know who they are.
Yeah, I think this is actually getting me fired up. I'm like,
Well, I'll tell you another thing I used to do. It's just something that came to my mind just now is, and I didn't create any of this. It's, you learn from other people, and I would do a sheet that what I know about you. And I would actually just find out everything I could about them. Like, okay, you're in manufacturing. Maybe I know of some recent news of theirs. Maybe I know how, their revenue, their key executives, their, different stuff about their company. And I would send that along with, with some other information so that they knew that I took a minute to understand who they were, and that, here's what I know about you, and here's what we do for your industry. And here's, you can tie these things together, and it helps you to gain access, because they're going to go, oh, this guy understands what I do. He took time to understand me, my company, my industry, those kinds of things. Like, put in there a couple things about what's happening in manufacturing industry that you're aware of. And
if someone is buying like, if you're wanting them to buy what they are from you, which is like for me at least, payroll, timekeeping, and HR, they're spending a hefty amount of money on it. So you taking these extra few minutes to understand what they're actually doing and who their company is like critical to a make or break in a deal. And not that I'm the one that's, doing the demos, but I'm the first touch. So they're meeting me first, and then they're meeting my rep. So my impression on them means almost just as much, if not more, on the first impression that they have with my rep. So I think it's like everything you're saying is just so important when you are interacting with these people. It's like making sure you follow up even after you send that and go like, did I get everything right? Like, I want to know more about you. Let me, schedule a call. It's little things like that, and it's going like, I know you're another name in my system, but you're not just any name to me. And so, yeah, I think, like we said, you have to have two different approaches, but those are great for the ones who.
The more strategic ones, right? The ones that you're taking a little more time on and putting a little more effort into, and you rotate those out as well. Once you knock out 10 of those that week, or 5, or whatever your number is, then the next week you pick 5 or 10 more, and you go towards them. And then after you get through your manufacturing, you move to whatever other industry you do well in. Maybe it's retail, maybe it's healthcare.
Yeah, but that's just me.
So we talked a little, wow, thought I lost you there for a second. We've talked a little bit about, organizing, but what are some tools that you use to help yourself stay organized? Technology.
A lot of technology. I feel like there's every technology in the book for organization, but I really enjoy OneNote. It's almost like a binder, but on your computer, and you can attach like Excel workbooks to it, Salesforce links, and it'll pull it right up. And that helps me. I have tabs because I have 3 different reps I like work with to make, first appointments for. So I have all their names at the top of the tabs, and then what they want on that Monday, we have a call. So what their priorities for me on the call are, I put that in my Monday morning meetings. And then I put in a separate tab any marketing that we're doing. So any campaigns I'm doing with each of them, the people that they want them sent to. And then I have a separate tab, and it's just my to-do list. So I take, anything I got from each of them, and then I put it in my to-do list just for that day, like what I plan on doing that specific day. So that's one tool I use. And then another tool I use is Outlook. And that's where I will go and like block out my day so that everyone else can see it in my organization, anyone I work with, my team, my manager, and that shows like, okay, from, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Wednesday is just this person. Thursday is just this person. Friday is this person. Monday and Tuesday, Monday is just my meetings and any calls or emails I need to follow up from like the weekend, or I need to get out so that I can follow up with them throughout the week. And then Tuesday, so
So
say,
this is all, you're in Outlook right now, using
yeah,
Outlook, and you're blocking out calendar time for different things. I think that's critical because, at least for me, when I have, I'm typically working on deals with multiple people. So I have to involve a solutions consultant, a product expert. We have, my manager and other people that are going to be participating in a particular demo, for example. Well, if they don't have their calendar updated, then it's really hard for me to know when to schedule that time. And so when I'm talking to the customer, going, okay, let's set this for Thursday, I could go into Outlook, and if you select at the top scheduling assistant, it'll show you, and you punch in everybody's name that in your company that you want to attend. It'll show you their availability for that day.
do you ever struggle with organization and figuring out
Yes.
the system, like how to get a system in place? How long did it take you, like in your different roles?
Well, I'll say way back when I was when I was in the food and beverage industry before I even got into um, the corporate world, I was struggling. I struggled a lot with organization. I found this plan called it was the Franklin Covey method. Stephen Covey has some really great tools and books. And I learned to organize myself using a day planner. And it's a very specific method that allows you to kind of plan ahead, work your plan, keep things in a calendar, and then always keep that calendar with you. And this was, I'm dating myself. This was before smartphones and email and electronic calendars and all that stuff. So then eventually, things came out like the iPhone with the calendar that syncs up with your Outlook, and that obviously is way better because then you're not having to update two different things and so forth. So one thing I do with Outlook is I keep my entire personal and professional calendar in the same place, because I don't want to miss,
Right.
one of Nate's final water polo game of the season because I double booked myself and I had it in one calendar but not the other. So I just keep it all in one place, and I kind of blend the two, and that way I can block it out, because it really makes me stop and think, is this important? Is this something I really need to be putting in my calendar, or is this something that, that I don't need to put in the calendar? So anyway, I forget what your question was. I was very disorganized prior to finding that plan, and it took me a while once I got into the corporate world and some of this technology came out to transition from paper. Writing it down really helped me remember it as well, and I could put notes in there that attach to that. But I found that using Outlook now really works for me and my phone, because they sync up. And then another tool that I use, similar to OneNote, is called Evernote. And I use that strictly for any appointments that I have that I'm taking notes for a specific company, or things that I may need to reference later. Because the nice thing about it is when I'm at my desk, I can actually use my computer and type in there and be on a call like this. And then when I'm away from my desk, maybe traveling, I might have my laptop, but it's in my bag. I can actually pull up my phone and see the same notes in the app. And so it's all synced up, and I have it wherever I go, and I can update them or whatever. But that's for the types of notes that you don't necessarily put immediately. You're just taking raw notes, right? What I try to do then is immediately update all the fields in Salesforce.com. That's the tool that we use for our customer database. And so I'll take whatever key information I got out of that and update the fields that, in my case, my boss likes certain things, next steps, description, close date, things like that. I go in and update it from those notes, and might even copy. It's pretty easy to copy and paste chunks of those notes and just drop them right in to Salesforce, which is where I want the also where I want, and you can access Salesforce from your smartphone as well. And I'll show you a fun one that I learned about. It's an app called Big, and you can just write words and make them big. So like when you're talking to somebody and you want to make a really big point, you can just use your phone and put that word or whatever it is that you're trying to emphasize right there. No,
No, that one doesn't make any sense.
kind of dorky. It's not really organization. So I'll stick to the topic at hand. How's that?
Sounds good. Yeah, I think what's interesting for me is like, I'm around all this technology, so I should be very quick with it. And I know how to use all of it. Do I use all of it? Have I used all of it? No. And sometimes, I mean, it's recently hindered me, and not extremely. I think I've noticed it, but I used to not have a busy calendar. I didn't need to put things in my calendar, so I wouldn't. And you always see like moms and dads, they have like blocks here and whatever. Put it in your calendar, and you're like, what's the point? I could just go back in my messages and see what date, like just type it in the search box, and so you find these easy loops. But now, as I'm starting to actually build out my calendar, it's so different, because not only am I putting in set plans, I'm putting in plans that aren't set, that I have to set for myself. And it's almost like this, you have to get into this rhythm with yourself, like, okay, no one's sending you a calendar, Outlook invite, whatever, or you're not sending anyone, but you have to send yourself. Like, you have to put it in yourself, or else it's not, you can't be organized. It feels dysfunctional. So
Right.
I think just like repetition and consistency with building out your calendar is one that's difficult, but I've tried to be more diligent with, because I know it's only going to become increasingly more full, and I'm gonna have to get used to it.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want someone sending, you want to protect those big rocks, right? As much as you can. Sometimes you can move the rock, you can move it to a different day or but you don't want to, lose that rock, so to speak. You want to put it in there first. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. And then you can build around it, build whatever other things you need to do around those big important things. And some of those rocks might be like a team meeting that you have to go to every week for your team, for your job. Or for me, I have forecast calls I have to be on every week so I can update my boss on what's going on with my opportunities and things like that. The other thing I wanted to talk about, so we talked about technology. There's Outlook, there's Salesforce, there's the other one was you use OneNote. I use Evernote. There's some tools to take notes in. There's I know you use
I just like OneNote, because it actually syncs with your Outlook calendar. So like, you can plug in meetings, it'll send it right to OneNote. Like, it's all a system, but
there's a new feature that you're probably already aware of, but I've started really leveraging it with Outlook, where when you have an appointment coming up, it'll actually show me emails and things that might be related to that appointment, so that I'm not digging through, okay, what are we meeting about again, and trying to go through my email. It'll automatically populate different emails that are associated with that appointment. And then I can click on it and go, oh yeah, that's right. That's why we're meeting today.
no, but
I
that's
think it's a newer feature that you just have to turn on or update, get the latest version of Outlook. But I found that to be,
tough, is Outlook and building out like flagging things and like
well, and the
putting
other
things in
thing,
folders and stuff, and you're just like, there's so many folders on this freaking computer. Like, I don't.
There's another a neat thing that you can do with Outlook is you can add the Salesforce plugin. If you're using Salesforce for your customer tool, then you can click on the Salesforce button at the top if you had the add-in, and then it brings up a sidebar where you can attach that email into Salesforce. So you just hit save and send, and it'll send it to the person that you're sending it to, but it'll also attach to whatever contacts are associated from that email in Salesforce. So it finds it, it attaches it, and then you have more documentation of things that you've done with that account in Salesforce.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. It saves some time rather than going in and creating a new event or a new task or whatever that you've done, and type in email or whatever. It just does it for you. So that's another cool, I guess, organization way to organize yourself to stay efficient. The last thing I think that is helpful is to have a good workspace. You can see, like, I'm sitting in my home office. It's fairly neat. You can't see the stuff from like here forward. And I've got, I do get it a little messy where you can't see, but for the most part, I keep it organized to a point that I'm comfortable, right? And you have to be
a very exceptional organization tool in his brain, where it's like there will be this tax form covered under like thousands of papers, but he remembers that tax form is there and knows exactly.
Thousands. I don't know if thousands is fair. I do get a few things stacked up now and then, but I do try
Thousands.
by the end of the week or so to kind of get it cleared off again and get it back to where it was. And what I think that does is it helps you from being distracted. Like if you have too many things sitting in front of you and you're not organized, then in just the physical way, then it can be a distraction for you when you're trying to do your job. And then the other thing I like is I'm actually using two monitors. You can't really see that here, but I have two monitors that allows me to, like I shared that that document earlier, I can share that on one screen while I'm still able to see you and interact with you on the other screen. And sometimes it might be that I'm looking at an email over here and preparing a document over here, and so it gives me a lot more workable real estate, as we say, to work on.
Yep.
And that helps me stay organized.
I think that was our last tip for organization, and making sure you're on top of things.
Yeah. If we mentioned anything in this podcast that you're interested in knowing about, make comment below, and we will follow up and explain in more detail, because we kind of blew by some of it pretty quickly. We're happy to do that. So Emma, how about if we close with this? Yesterday was Halloween.
It was Halloween.
And I know as a little girl, you used to dress up a lot for Halloween, and we'd go do fun things. Like the church always had a carnival type event that we'd go to, and you get all dressed up in your princess dress or whatever it was. And sometimes I would as well. Tell me what your favorite costume or character was that you've ever dressed up as.
When I was 8 years old, my aunt made me this custom cowgirl costume, and I had a pink wig. I mean, I was the girl before the girls did it. And I had cowgirl hat that was fully rhinestoned, like pink cowgirl boots. She put like everything was homemade, like, but to a T. Like there was no room for error there. And I felt like the coolest girl on Halloween. And it was my favorite costume. Other than, I will say, JoJo Circus was pretty cool.
Nice. All right.
I'll show you what JoJo Circus looks like.
Okay.
What was
so mine, I actually dressed up this year to go to a concert because it was we just wanted to have some fun. It was over the weekend, and so uh
I just was her.
so I dressed up as Batman this year. Um, and I think my favorite costume, I've been Batman and I've been you know, pirate. I really liked my pirate costume when it was kind of like that Jack Sparrow sort of look. I thought that was a cool one, but my favorite one of all time was when I dressed up as a bumblebee one year. And I had like multiple arms and this big giant butt for the tail and the stinger, and it was just ridiculous and funny. And so I went to a party with it on, and everybody that saw me would just laugh. It was just like hilarious. And I just love that. I love seeing people, you know, react to something like that. And I had the big like Mickey Mouse hands and feet, you know, the shoes. And it was very much over the top and fun and yellow and black. And
I told
I had
everyone at work that you always dressed up as a salesman because it would be like, could he make it in time? Like he was working in Rancho Cucamonga, it was like a struggle.
trying
So,
to get home.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, this year I'm going as a salesman.
Well, one year I did Clark Kent, and I just wore a Superman shirt underneath. So it was like you could see that I was Superman as well. Um, but yeah, the Bumblebee one was fun. I remember being at the party, and there's that song "Turn the Beat Around," but they were spinning me saying "Turn the beat around." Anyway, it was fun.
You're a laughing stock. We love that.
It was, yeah. I made everybody smile. I like making people smile.
How sweet. All right. Well, we will catch you next week with another episode of The Dilemma. But in the meantime, get to your Christmas decorating and enjoy this week's this week's episode.
That's right.
All right.
Bye, Emma.